What amazing fact did I notice? Why does a beautiful girl leave a man? I conducted experiments, and every time the result was the same. We don't understand what level of girl we are attracting. That is, you have a certain status. You meet a beautiful girl. But this girl actually belongs to a completely different status level, much higher. You tried to get something going with her, got acquainted, went on dates, but in the end she still left you. Why does this happen? I noticed the same thing, just like my friend did. Beautiful but poor girls. If you're not Alain Delon, if you're not a stripper, they correspond to a certain status. For example, she has 10 suitors. One gives her an iPhone, the second gives her an iPhone, the ninth gives her an iPhone, and the 10th gives her, well, for example, a Mercedes, a car. Question, who do you think she will perhaps choose? Calling her materialistic? And so on is pointless because we men are exactly the same. If 9 ordinary girls are hitting on us, flirting and inviting us into a relationship, and the 10th is, for example, Valia Carnaval, a cool, famous, wealthy, successful, young, beautiful girl. Question, who would you pay attention to? Well, naturally to Valia Carnaval. Why? Because a person is such a being, they always choose the best. He wants to choose the best. That's why we try to choose the best. And girls also try to choose the best. So you've experienced this in your life. We actually ran this experiment on ourselves, and within a year we realized that with ordinary, great, cool girls, we had no problem dating them. Lots of dates, lots of relationships. But when it came to a girl who was really on another level, yes, very beautiful, after 2 or 3 dates, she would always leave. And we started to wonder so many times in a row the same situation. Why is that? We started to figure out, who do these kinds of girls date? And it turns out, here's a specific example from my friend. He's handsome, looks like Johnny Depp. He met a girl, and in a group setting, he keeps trying to seduce her, so to speak, to get her interested in him. Nothing worked at all. He thought, what the hell? All the other girls in this group are into him, but not her. Why? She was, well, the most beautiful one there, of course, at least for him. In the end, yeah, something happened. 2 weeks later, she comes in and says, girls, I'm in a relationship. And he was there too, just hanging out with them. So he heard all of this as well. He's thinking, what the hell? I'm Alain Delon. I have a motorcycle, a decent rented apartment. I'm a good-looking guy. I wonder, who was it that became his competition and managed to win over such a girl? Turns out, Yarshus, he was completely unremarkable. He didn't even call him a man, just a guy. A guy. Some unimpressive little guy with a belly. Driving a brand new BMW 5 Series. 2 weeks after they met, he gave her an iPhone as a gift. And now, they're in a relationship. So what conclusion can we draw from this? Above a certain level, status has to match up. That's why I created a unique table. Yes, I haven't seen anything like this anywhere else. So I'm probably the first one to make such a table. Let's call it the John Dollar status scale. Yes, let me introduce it to you. Girls, up to 7 points. Who are they? Ordinary girls, whom hardly anyone knows. People know her at work and in the building where you live. That's it. As my experience over 18 years has shown, for a girl like this, a status level of $1 to $10,000 is enough for her not to leave you, to stay with you, not to cheat, and to fall in love with you. Yes, meaning you'll have the means to give her little gifts, arrange surprises, take her out on dates, and so on. For example, buying her a new iPhone once a year. Let's say every year you buy her a new iPhone, and she'll have no problems to staying with you. Next is the 7-point girl. A girl who is already known throughout the whole city. For example, Miss City or Miss Moscow, for instance. So in other words, a lot of people already know her. Naturally, she's a bit more attractive than a girl rated up to 7 points. How much money do you need for a girl like that? More than $10,000. So, 10 and up, let's say 10 to $50,000. That amount will be more than enough for her to be with you, to have no problem meeting you, getting to know you, going on dates, falling in love with you, building a relationship, and so to speak, creating that kind of lifestyle for herself. She won't cheat on you. As long as, of course, you behave yourself properly. In other words, she won't cheat, but that's a different topic. Today we're talking about status. Let's move on. A woman at the 8-point level. A woman who is already known throughout the whole country, for example. Miss Russia. To be with a woman like that, you need to be earning more than $100,000. In other words, not for her, but to be in a relationship with such a woman, you need to match her and have a status of over $100,000. Why is that? Because her standard of living already matches that level. Just imagine Miss Russia, naturally. She earns money too. Here's the question. Why would she date a man who makes much less than she does? Why? If she's not unattractive, she's beautiful. She's Miss Russia. She can choose anyone she wants. And she's being hit on by much cooler men than you, for example, who earn tens of times less there than she does. Of course it would be nice. Of course it would be nice to believe in such fairy tales, but fairy tales don't exist. I'm telling you the real picture, the one no one ever told me about. In fact, I was told the opposite. And I made a huge mistake by falling for that. I was told, you don't need to make money to be with beautiful girls. You don't need to give them gifts. On the contrary, you should be getting gifts from them. As a result, after 2 or 3 dates, those kinds of girls would leave. It's impossible to build a relationship with a beautiful but poor girl without making some kind of investment. And now we're discussing what level of girl you can actually attract. So, if you were earning up to $10,000 and wanted to meet Miss Russia, of course, she might go on a date with you. You could meet her at a club, somewhere, for example. But after 2 or 3 dates, she would realize that you don't match her status, and naturally, she would end those dates. This is the experience we gained after going on 10,000 dates with my friend. With charisma, and intelligence, yes. You can get her interested, yes. For 2, 3, 4, even 5 dates. Sure. Yes, you'll have sex, but there won't be any long-term relationship after that. That's why I say you need to make money if you want an awesome, cool, beautiful girl. Without money, she'll just send you packing. Why? We've discussed this before. 9 men approach her, each offering her an iPhone. Then a 10th man comes up and offers her a Mercedes, let's be clear, and they all look the same. And maybe the one offering the Mercedes is even better looking. The logical choice is obvious. How does she roughly know her own value? Because she goes on dates too. She has a general idea of what's being offered to her. Actually, it's not just a general idea. She sees what different men are offering her. She gets messages in her DMs, just like when I went out with Miss Rostov. Every day she would show me what she was being offered. Flowers, a ride on a yacht, trips to Dubai or Turkey, all paid for to go relax with them. In other words, everything is covered. Let's fly, but only with me. And she gets a general sense. Okay, these are the amounts of money and kinds of gifts I'm being offered. Why should I date a man who makes, say, $2,000 if every month I'm being offered gifts worth $10,000? The question is, why? That's why the more attractive and beautiful the woman you want, the more money you need to start making. And now I'm going to tell you about John Dollar's scale. The status scale you need to have, in order to attract a woman of that level. And not just attract her, but also so that she stays with you without any problems in the relationship, doesn't want to cheat on you or look for better options, because she understands as well. Well, it's cool that I'm Miss Moscow. But let's say, for example, Elon Musk comes up to her at some party. She also understands I'm probably not going to leave my man. She also understands, well, I'd have to be a complete fool to immediately run after Elon Musk. I mean, I get that I probably wouldn't be the only one for him, even if he came up to meet me that evening. And he makes 1,000 times more than my current guy. So she understands that fairy tales like that don't happen, that it's unlikely he'd come up to her and easy propose marriage. She understands that basically this is the level I can handle. And beyond that, it's not worth showing off or going for risky options, yes, risky ones. Even if a man who's cooler or earns more approaches me. There's no guarantee I'll be able to build a relationship with him, because the more money a man has, the easier it is for him to change women like gloves. Why? There are opportunities. Any evening he can go to a strip club and pick up the most beautiful girl there for himself for several years. Or he can simply call an escort agency and get any girl he wants for several years, and no one would even know that she's with him as an escort. They'll pick one for her, so to speak. That's why she understands all of this perfectly well. So she's not going to, so to speak, show off or act out if someone more impressive calls her. She won't just run off immediately. So, as my experience has shown, this amount is basically enough for her life to meet her expectations, her standards, so to speak. Yes, she understands that, let's say, a Miss Moscow type understands that getting a new iPhone once a year is nice, and flying somewhere once a year is also pretty good. Like going somewhere for a month, not just for a week or two, but for a whole month on some cool vacation. He gives me $200, $300, or $400 a month. That's already good. Basically, I could be with a man like that. Let's move on. A girl at the 9-point level. That's already a Victoria's Secret level girl. I always found it really funny when people said, I met a 10 yesterday. How can you say you met a 10? If Angelina Jolie, for example, is also a 10. If Valia Carnival is also a 10, then what are you saying? What, were you with Valia Carnival yesterday? No. That's why I came up with this grading system. I haven't seen this kind of grading anywhere else either. I based it not only on looks, but also on status, and so to speak, external attributes. Yes? Meaning the level of coolness. Miss of the city, miss of the country. So a girl who is known by the whole city, a girl who is known by the whole country, a girl who is 9 points, Victoria's Secret level, a girl who is known by, well, half the world. For a girl like that, yes, just to be clear, for a girl like that, as my experience has shown, you need to be earning at least $1 million a month or more. Only then will a girl like that be with you. So for 99.9% of the population, these are astronomical numbers. Yes, so from here on, for you, it's basically fantasy. You could say a level of fantasy. But this is how the top 1% of the population lives. It's also hard to imagine that you're earning $10,000. You go somewhere, somehow end up at a Victoria's Secret event, meet this girl who was walking the runway, and you two start a relationship. Is it possible to believe in something like that? Of course not. And here's why. Because your status doesn't measure up to hers. She meets and builds relationships with men who earn $1 million or more. Why is that? Because she walked down the runway just once. There, naturally, are insanely cool, wealthy men sitting in the audience who have assistants and all that. And he says, I want to meet that girl. If you've seen the Russian movie Platon, it's just like how they would bring specific girls. To cool rich guys, how Pavel Volya's character basically worked as a pimp, supplying top-notch girls, cool girls to different men. They would go, for example, to fashion shows. Wealthy men would say, I want to meet that one. So he would go, work, and talk to this girl in order to introduce them. Naturally, he would tell her what level this man was at. So the girl would understand what kind of catch he was, so to speak. And it's the same thing. He has an assistant sitting there. And after that, this assistant comes up and says, there's a man over there who wants to meet you. Here's what he looks like. Here's how much he earns. Yachts, planes, helicopters, castles, and so on. And she realizes, wow, that's the level of men I attract. That's why, naturally, a man who comes up to her earns $10,000, he might get into her party. He might even have sex with her. But I'll say it again. Building a relationship with a girl like that is impossible. Why? So you don't get upset later? Because I remember I had a story like this recently. A guy comes in, a student, earning, what, at most $2,000. He met a very beautiful, cool model, came from the sticks, from a village to the city. They started dating there. After a month, he helped her get into some modeling school. 4 months later, she left him for another guy, a seriously high-status man. He came to me with this problem. How could this happen? She came here, I gave her everything. I helped her out. That's just how it is. After that, he just didn't match her status anymore. That's all there is to it. I mean, she arrived, didn't understand anything yet, didn't know how much I'm worth, what kind of men, what level of men are interested in me. I was in the village, under my parents' upbringing. Yes, at first that was enough, but then at her modeling shoots, one guy hits on her, then another, then the 10th, then the 20th. By the 20th, of course, she can't take it anymore and realizes, damn, here they're constantly offering me a Mercedes, a car, and you're offering me, at best, an iPhone once a year. So that you don't end up with such harsh disappointments. Because the guy took a very long time to get over this situation. Why? Well, damn. You've always hung out with, well, regular girls, and then you meet a beauty, she starts living with you, you build a relationship with her, you're totally hooked. You're completely blown away. You think, no way, is a girl this gorgeous really with me? And in the end, she goes to a man with higher status. Question, what will happen to you? Well, obviously, it'll be a disaster, a psychological trauma for life. Now you don't trust beautiful girls anymore, you think they all just want money. You see them all as materialistic. Maybe a man like that will even start taking revenge on girls like that. In other words, who knows how this psychological trauma will play out later, or how badly it will mess you up. But that it will mess up anyone, that's for sure. So, to keep it from hitting you too hard, I'm warning you. If you come across, if you see a girl who is way out of your league compared to the ones you've seduced before, you urgently need to level up. Or don't get upset if in a week, 2 or 3 she says all the best, goodbye. Sorry, we're not on the same path, you're not enough for me. To put all her words in plain Russian, so you don't end up slitting your wrist. Because really, why do you need a Rolls Royce if you're making $1,000 a month? Where are you going to get the money to change the oil? Replace the brake discs? Change the brake pads? Where? That's why you don't have a Rolls Royce. That's why you don't have an awesome, beautiful girlfriend. You don't have the money for maintenance to make sure she doesn't leave you. And to wrap up today, yes, so this is where John Dollar's status scale for relationships came from. I haven't seen anything like it anywhere else, so I'm the only one. Because I ran into this problem myself. I learned how to easily meet ordinary girls, but as soon as I met a truly wow, unbelievably amazing cool girl, after 2 or 3 dates, sex, she would still leave. And my friend had the exact same experience. And this was based on, well damn, about 10,000 dates. I mean, that's no joke. I get it if we'd only gone on 10 dates. But 10,000 dates, can you imagine the experience we gained? That's why I can confidently say that this is exactly how it is. If someone says otherwise, okay, then ask them, how many dates have you been on in your entire life? If he says 100, now let's compare 10,000 dates to 100. Right? So who's the bullshitter here, so to speak? So, let's move on to the 10-point level. This is a girl known all over the world. Angelina Jolie, Rosie, this is a 10-point level girl. And for a girl like that, naturally, you need to be making $10 million or more to match her level of beauty and status, so that she doesn't go anywhere. In other words, she already understands. First of all, she earns that much herself, and she sees that you measure up. That's why we can choose together the perfect vacation that matches me, the cars that suit us, the houses that are right for us. If, for example, you're earning up to $10,000, but you want a 7-point girl, someone cooler, then you need to start earning more. Then she'll stay with you. If you don't start earning more, it's only a matter of time before she leaves you, or settle for a girl who's less than 7 points. Yeah, you just don't measure up to a 7-point girl. Yeah, you'll live your whole life like that. Well, what can you do if you don't want to bust your ass, so to speak? I mean, some people do bust their ass. Make a lot of money, huh? Take risks every day. And that's why life rewards them with such beautiful women. And you think you don't need to bust your ass, that everything will just happen on its own. Or maybe you've listened to people, like I once did, who say you don't need to make money, that she'll buy you all sorts of gifts, and so on. Nothing good will come of that. Why would an amazing, beautiful girl, unless, I'll say it again, you're a stripper or look like Alain Delon? Sure, for men like that, there's competition. But as practice shows, 99.9% of the men watching me are probably not Alain Delon or strippers. So the conclusion is that you need to match a girl's status. What's interesting, and something else I can point out, as you may have noticed, girls who are rated 7 to 10 in looks are pretty much the same. They're all beautiful. Any one of them. You could marry any of them. So from 7 to 10, they're all gorgeous. The only thing that sets them apart is their status. Their status in this world. So if, for example, you don't want a girl who's known by the whole world, even if you have money, boy, but you don't want a girl on Angelina Jolie's level, then you can easily marry a 7. She has the same looks. It's just that, who knows her? The whole city. She's just as beautiful as Angelina Jolie. Well, only the whole city knows her. Jolie is famous.